So you made it through low rank and you're wondering what comes next. Well, congrats on beating the tutorial and welcome to my ultimate high rank guide. Now in this video, I'm going to be covering everything you can need to know about high rank. We're going to be talking about the various features that are unlocked in high rank. We're going to be going over some of the best armor pieces that I would suggest prioritizing in terms of your crafting, some of the best weapons in each category, a full breakdown of Artian Weapons. We're going to talk about investigations and map cycling, and lastly, a couple of important tips for the training dummy when it comes to putting builds together. Now, obviously, this video is going to be chock full of spoilers, so if you don't want to see any more than the Guardian Arkfeld's armor, I suggest you turn away now. With that being said, let's jump into it. And the first thing we're talking about is the new things unlocked in high rank. Now, to start, Nata stops thinking he is Arkfeld and actually decides to be helpful for once. So Nata will now be our item trader. Everybody that will offer us trades, we can now do this through Nata. So we can just check in, see what's being offered without having to go all over the map. In addition, we also unlock farming. Now you're going to get 5 particular people: Reicher, Murderbach, Apar, Plumpeach, Sabar, and each of these are unlocked by you doing side quests for these people. Once you have all 5, you can just manage that here at Nata, and they are going to retrieve whatever you would like out of a pre-designated list. Different people get priority for different things. So like this one has 3 honey, whereas this one isn't going to do too hot on honey, and I'll just send them for any. If it says any, that means whatever you were sending them for is now at 0 stars, and so you're willing to take whatever they can get. After this fills back up, I'll be able to pick something in particular again. Moving on from there, we also unlock the support ship. I'm going over to the support ship. I'm not talking to you right now, Rosso. Please stop. Going over to the support ship, we have 3 things that we can select. Either medicinal items, equipment materials, or miscellaneous items, which is mostly going to be trade-ins or hunting items, gear, and whatnot. In general, I like equipment materials, and the reason for this being that equipment materials I can chuck on into the forge, and I can turn these into the things I need to make armor spheres or make my Artian upgrade mats. So I will go through every time he comes in, buy those monster mats, and be on my way, because I have 71,000 guild points and I'm never going to spend those. Now, moving on from there, over in the Scarlet Forest, and to be completely honest, I'm not sure if this is a high rank only thing or not, but I only discovered it in high rank. It might just be it happens only at a specific time of day, but we're not going to actually showcase the whole thing. We're just going to go over to it because I don't want to cycle the map right now. What is this? Let me in. So going over here to the Woodwood hideout. And you'll notice if it's active because you'll see a ton of exclamation points. But you come on over here during a seasonal change. From what I can tell, I think it always occurs at the start of plenty. And if it's nighttime, and all the woodwoods are going to be gathered up here. You can talk to a bunch of them. A couple of them are going to trade with you. A couple of them are just going to give you free stuff. And then there is a chef right here. And when we speak to the chef, we can chuck a bunch of stuff into a big bonfire. We can chuck fish materials, meat, as well as monster tails. And then based on, oh my god, look at the timing. I could not have planned this any better myself. What season are we in right now? We're in the season of plenty. Wow, just absolutely flawless. Oh my god, what are the chances, right? All right, so anyway, as I was saying, happy time share. They are just going to give us a bunch of stuff. If they ask to trade, absolutely trade. I just traded meat and got ivy. Ivy is used for pitfall traps. That is a huge win on my part. And we'll get all that stuff, and when we're done, we'll talk to Chamber here. And then we're just gonna throw whatever we want in here. I'll throw some mandragoras in. Let's do some sushi fish scales. We'll do a gormagala tail. We'll do some blue mushrooms. And why not? Guardian Sacred Feather. You're going to toss a bunch of stuff in the fire. They're just going to roast it all up. And then we're going to get a bunch of stuff. Sometimes you're getting charred lizard. Sometimes you're getting rations. Sometimes you're getting immunizers. And this is like this is the closest thing we have to a canteen for mass producing like rations and well done steaks. But, it is what it is. Now, from here, hopping on over to Region 3 with the Oil Well Basin. You'll be coming here periodically to purge yourself of all the monster parts. And look at that. One more just showed up to give me a free goodie, but I already flew away. Now, once we are over at Oil Well Basin, This is another thing that's unlocked. And earlier you saw that Nata said retrieve festival shares. That's actually where we're going right now. We can talk to this guy, Raquel here, and we can get shares from him, but we'll do that from Nata. Instead, we can smelt armor spheres over here. Heavy armor spheres are quite expensive at 5,000 points per one, which is insane. We can also smelt ore, which is the big thing. Now, orichalcite and actually all of this is going to be what's used to upgrade our Artian weapons, and we need 50 orichalcite to max one Artian weapon. So what I typically do is I come here, I sort out by amounts, and then I'm just going to do this. Anything that's beyond 10, I'm just going to chuck it on in, and I'll do that to get me orichalcite. When I actually finished building my various high rank sets, I chucked every monster material I had into this and came out with enough stuff to make. I maxed out, I think it was like 10 separate Artian weapons. But so coming here periodically, you're going to need to, you know, chuck your stuff in there and get your materials. Now we have nothing in Ice Shard Cliffs, nothing in Ruins of Wyveria, but over in Suja, we have the lovely Elder Melder. Now the Elder Melder has two separate tiers. The first is going to be just the baseline tier that we unlock, and the second comes at HR 100. So initially we have Wyvern Melding. In general, I would not recommend using this. We are going to have decoration hunts and investigations that'll get us infinite amounts of decorations. You do not need to do this. As for melding relics, you don't want to do this either. These are going to make rarity 6 relic weapons. These are level 6 Artian, level 7 Artian. These make rarity 8 Artians. Now this is what we want. If you happen to be low on blades or tubes or discs or devices, you can use those. Keep in mind, it is a 50% upcharge for telling her to get you exactly what you want. So usually ancient weapon fragments are going to be your best bet. We have investigations to get a bunch of these, but these are going to be what is used to craft Artian weapons, which we're going to be covering a little bit later in the video. We also have the ability to meld any level 1 decoration. After you hit HR2, you have the ability to meld any level 2 decoration. And while you're going to have most of them, it is nice just to be like, hey, look at that, my magazine 2 jewel, I got it. And just come here and buy it. There is no melding of level 3 decorations. I think that might be something that gets added in with master rank or possibly down the line, but for now it doesn't exist. Another thing I'd like to point out is the feast. This is another thing. I don't remember if this happened in low rank at all, but you could see how the map had that little icon on it over in this zone. That means that someone here would like to offer me a meal. Now, meals tend to be a little iffy at times because, you know, somebody clearly wants to offer me one. If I go to the full map, I can see that icon, and that means somebody's trying to offer me food, but they're not out right now. So I don't know why they're not out, but clearly somebody is trying to feed me. I don't know where the hell they're at. It doesn't matter. We got more stuff to do. So I believe that covers everything in terms of the new additions. From there, let's go ahead and jump in. Let's talk about some smithing stuff. Now, before we actually talk about smithing, actually, let's go in and we're going to talk about Artian first, because that's pretty important. So Artian weapons are one of the end game components, and these are not unlike the Safi Jiva weapons. The idea behind Artian weapons is you can custom make a weapon. So for example, taking my Mundus Atlas here, this is an Artian switch axe, and I made a Dragon Artian switch axe, and then I upgraded it, and it happened to get attack, affinity, sharpness, element. Now that's less than ideal for an elemental switch axe. I want to get at least 2 elemental boosts, ideally 3. So we're going to break this down and make a new one. So we go to Forge Artian Weapon, Forge Switch Axe, and first up I'm going to be going for dragon parts, which it looks like I'm actually not going to be making this because I don't have any fucking dragon parts. Well, let's just pretend and say we are making a, you know, a Thunderblade. So the base Artian is 190 by 5%. If I add something with attack, it goes to 195. If I add something with affinity, the affinity goes up 10%. If I add a matching, so you can see right now I have no element. If I add a second thunder, it's going to go up to thunder. It's going to have 260, that's affinity, so I'm now at 195.10 with 260 thunder. If I add a third thunder, you can see the attack and affinity is changing, but if I add a third thunder, I'm going to squeeze in an extra 20 element into this weapon. So this is the basis of building your Artian weapons. If you match 2 element types or 2 status types, the weapon will infuse with that. For whatever reason, status is just also called element in a lot of menus now. But so I'm going to use that moving forward. The point is match 2 elements to get the weapon. And if you're going to make that, you might as well always match 3, because let's say I'm making blast, you know, it's 110 blast. I could slap whatever I want in it, but there's no reason to not do another blast and just get an extra 20 free blast. There's no reason. I might as well, right? Now, after you make an Artian weapon, keep in mind 3 attacks will start you at 205, 3 affinity will start you at 190 with 20% affinity. Otherwise, your base attack is 190. Like I said, your base affinity is at 5%. So all attacks get you 205, 5 affinity. All affinity gets you 190 and 20% affinity. Now, after you have forged an Artian weapon, we then would reinforce the Artian weapon. And so going over here, we can, let me see, what do I want to work on right now? I guess we'll do this. We can go over here and we can pour our calcite into it. Now it's going to take 10 or calcite per level. So we could just put 10 in. Why not? Let's go. Let's just max it. You can do it one at a time. You can do all 50. But the point is, we're going to infuse this and see what we get out of it. See if it's something that's good. And unfortunately, that is terrible. These are meant to be elemental dual blades, and instead I got attack, affinity, sharpness, sharpness, attack. That is about the worst it could possibly be for me. So we're going to go ahead and see if I have... No, that's right, I don't have the dragon. I can't forge a new one. Son of a bitch. Well, I'm stuck with it for now. But if, you know, if I had parts to make a new one, I would just dismantle that. And so I would go here, I'd, you know, just grab it and go, okay, dismantle. And so what it's going to do, I'm not going to get back the 3 Artian parts that I used to craft it. Those are gone forever. In exchange for that, I get a single Argisite. However, the 50 ore calcite I used to upgrade it, I get all of that back. And so this is part of the endgame loop, is getting the materials to make Artian weapons and then maxing them out and basically playing the lottery and seeing, you know, can I get a super good weapon? And sometimes you hit it, sometimes not so much. I mean, I have a couple that came out pretty good. You know, this greatsword, check that out. Attack, 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 affinity, attack. That thing is stacked. 220 true raw, 15 affinity, 250 paralysis. I love it. My bow came in pretty good too. Element, 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 affinity, attack. This is like this is ideally what I want to have on a bow, and that outclasses every other elemental bow I've seen in the entire game. So as a general rule of thumb, when it comes to elemental weapons, when it comes to elemental weapons, Artian is going to clean sweep just about every category. Now there are a few monster crafted that are comparable. Jindahad's weapons tend to keep up. Yuku's weapons tend to keep up, and there's a couple others. Those are the 2 big ones that come to mind immediately. But for the most part, once you get an Artian, and especially getting ideal rolls on an Artian, it will outclass pretty much every other comparable elemental weapon. Now, when it comes to something that's non-elemental, I think status is worth it. There is nothing in the greatsword category comparable to this that has 220 raw with 250 paralysis with white sharpness with 3 level 3 decorations. In a similar fashion, this blast lance that I have, this is less than ideal. I got element, attack, sharpness, sharpness, but with good rolls, this would outclass pretty much most of the other lances available in the game. My blast charge blade, there is no blast charge blade, so I obviously love this. Griefren, this is by far the best normal shot bowgun available right now. I was messing with Pierce on it more recently, but you know, I can make a heavy bowgun that's going to outclass a lot of other heavy bowguns because I'm at 220 attack and I have positive affinity, whereas usually when you're getting up that high, you tend to go into negative affinity. But as a general rule of thumb, if you're making elemental weapons, it's going to shine in Artian, and the general loop is going to be craft them. If they end up good after upgrading, keep them, otherwise break them down. Now, with that being said, let's talk about the weapons and ideal weapon choices. As I mentioned, I'm already using an Artian Greatsword. I would consider that to be my go-to. However, the Fire Trail Blaisdell, not a bad choice. Coming in at 240 with positive affinity, it does have blue sharpness, but a decent Greatsword overall. You can see this one has more paralysis, but not even remotely close to the other stats to my personal Greatsword. Going down the street, there are a couple of themes here. In general, Doshiguma, Guardian Arkfeld, and Guardian Doshiguma are going to be your big hard, like big high raw weapons. Think of these as like the Black Diablos or the Diablos weapons of world. So if you're looking for raw, you're usually going to have a fat amount of raw on these, a little bit of negative affinity, and then some poor sharpness. But in general, they are a safe bet if you're looking for that big damage. As I mentioned, Yuku weapons, these generally have a ton of element on them. I don't think, yes, he does have a Jindahad. Jindahad, also a ton of element on them. But scrolling through, you can see most other weapons, aside from this, which is a meme, most other weapons aren't getting up to that much element. The others are usually significantly lower. The Gormagala weapons are all going to have crit element, and this is a theme. So like Gormagala will always have crit element. Rathalos will always have crit boost. Rathian will always have crit status and poison duration up. Jasaparos will always have critical draw, punishing draw. Fulgur will always have crit element, etc., etc. You're getting the idea. But so Guardian, Doshaguma, decent greatsword if you're looking for just pure raw. But to be honest, I like mine already. I would suggest going Artian with either Paralysis or Blast in the greatsword. But if you don't want to do that, this one looks pretty gnarly and it is solid. As for longsword, there is one clear winner in the longsword category I'm going to talk about, Blaganga. This thing is a giant flamberge. It comes in at 230 true raw, minus 10% affinity, white sharpness, and 3 points critical draw for them juicy EI attacks. Going over to Sword and Shield, my favorite Sword and Shield out of everything in the category was the Ajarakan. This thing's pretty solid. 210, 10% affinity, 180 blast, healthy white sharpness, comes with offensive guard built in, which is a necessity now on Sword and Shield. Very nice, but Sword and Shield absolutely decimates with elemental damage. So if you're liking Sword and Shield, I'd suggest cooking up 5 Artian Sword and Shields and making one of each element. If you're going to go the physical route, I think you have a very solid choice in this one. For dual blades, I'm not even going to really cover them because dual blades are usually played elemental. Artian sweeps every category. If for some reason you want to do physical dual blade, you're probably going to do the Guard Flayer or Basta with the 250 raw and blue sharpness. Alternatively, you could go for the Guardian inspired Yuan at 240, get a little bit of dragon into the mix. As for the hammer, I'm actually a really big fan of the Binder Mace. 220 attack, 250 paralysis, healthy amount of white, 331 on decorations, and Stamina Thief. Chotacabra, also a pretty decent choice since it comes with Stamina Thief and Charge Up. Otherwise, big damage on the Guardian Elkveld. Zuwu, I'm going to call out just because it's a sick giant fucking axe, and I love that. It looks super cool. But similar to the Longsword, Blaganga is going to come in really strong. 230 raw, white sharpness, even with minus 10 affinity. 230 and white sharpness is insane because it's super easy to offset negative 10% affinity. It's not even a concern. As for Hunting Horn, 3 Hunting Horns I like to call out. A Jarakan if you're looking for a Hunting Horn that does offset. If you're looking for a Hunting Horn that does Resounding Melody, either the Resounding Galahad or alternatively this Resounding Galahad. Now the main difference between them, they are very similar. They're both going to have attack up large. One has defense up large, while the other has the ability to restore sharpness and extend all melodies. One of them does slash, one of them does more dragon. Personally, I like the one on the right more because restoring sharpness is super cool. Lastly, for healing, the Guardian Doshagama, very solid horn for health healing, has health regeneration, has health recovery small, large, earplugs large, and melody of life. But it is outclassed by Rathian, which has comparable healing and also comes with attack up large. Going over to the Lance. I'm a really big fan of my Lance that I'm cooking up right now, but the Lance follows similar themes to some of the other trees. Chemetry's coming in pretty solid at 240 with positive affinity and blue sharpness and guard 3 on it. Compared to this, you know, we're getting a level 3 over level 2 deco slot, but we're also trading 15% affinity for that at the same time, which isn't very nice. In a similar fashion, this is one of the ones I would say is worthwhile, only because we're getting full offensive guard on it, which is really nice, but at the same time, we already have a level 3 in the Fire Trail. You might as well just slap offensive guard into that level 3 slot, slap a, you know, whatever into the level 2, a guard up maybe, and you're cooking. You know, you won't have any sharpness mitigation, but you know, it is what it is. If you want sharpness mitigation, get Artian for the 3 level 3 deco slots. For Gun Lance, 3 Gun Lances. Honorable mention to the Jindahad tree. It's the sexiest Gun Lance I've ever seen. I love it. But for those of you playing normal, Chemetry's. Chemetry's has slightly strong power. That means its shelling is 20% stronger than comparable Gun Lances and 40% stronger than Gun Lances that are slightly weak. If you are playing long, the clear winner is the White Cannon, coming in with slightly strong 240 and 400 blast. And if you're playing wide or just want to have the biggest gun lance dick around, the G Lawful Bores at 230, -10, 250 Dragon, 2 points of guard, wide, slightly strong. This thing has stronger full bursts than this, which is hilarious because it's a wide gun lance. This is outright the strongest gun lance in the game. It's probably going to get nerfed. If it does, your fallback, of course, would be the Precipice Lomata, which once again is the sexiest gun lance in the game. Hopping over to switch axe. I actually went all Artian, making elemental switch axes, but it does follow comparable rules to before. If you're looking for power files, we have the Guardian Arcfeld at 230, level 2. Alternatively, this one has power prolonger at level 3 with less negative affinity. They have comparable sharpness to one another. If you want exhaust, as far as I know, I believe there's only one exhaust switch axe in the game, and it is the Bone Smasher, which is kind of disappointing because exhaust switch axe is kind of a meme, but it's also really fun to run. If you're running element in general, you're going to be better off just making the Ardians, as I already mentioned. Going over to charge blades, there's a couple standouts. The Venom's Kiss, pretty solid, coming in at 230 attack with blue, but punishing draw and critical draw are less than ideal, so I'm not a giant fan of that. In terms of impact files, decent choice here with hard bone because we get load shells on it already, which is very nice, and then 2 points of attack boosts. You could just ramp that up. Arcfeld, decent. We do get the white sharpness. We get 3 points of guard, which I like. This one we get even more, and we pick up the -10. We're still impact file, but in general, I would suggest just going Artian here because you could make it either blast or paralysis or whatever you want. And if you make it paralysis, it's not going to have as much paralysis, but you're going to have way better shit than critical draw and critical status. As for Insect Glaive, there are a couple callouts. The strongest in here is probably going to be the Rathian, coming in at 210, 15%, 180, solid amount of white, critical status, poison duration up. I do think the Ajarican is also a decent competitor if you want to go with Blast. Very similar, slightly less sharpness with Power Prolonger, but to be honest, the big problem with the Kinsect is we don't need Power Prolonger. The Kinsect loop is now spending our Kinsects, so most of these have skills that we're not really looking for, and because of that, we're better off going Ardians and getting 3 level 3 decoration slots for just more skill economy. Going into the light bowgun, the Rathian is going to be our best in slot Pierce, and then our best in slot normal. Where did it go? Where did it go? There we go. Faithbreaker coming in at 240, -5, has opening shot 3-3. You could actually get opening shot and tetrad shot on this, which would make it an absolute monster of a weapon. All in all, very solid. If you want to go elemental, a lot of these are actually decent outright for elemental, and it's going to cost a lot less, obviously, than the Ardian. So if you want to make Ardians for elemental, they're good. Alternatively, you know, they're all pretty straightforward. This is going to be the rapid fire fire one. Rapid fire dragon isn't really a thing. This will be our rapid fire thunder. This is a rapid fire ice, and there isn't a good rapid fire water. For rapid fire water, it stays at 3, which isn't very good. Or you have 5, but with level 1 capacity, which elemental boost magazine and special ammo. I don't think you could get that higher. Maybe you could. I don't know. For heavy bowguns, a couple call outs. The Ore Tree, of all things, is actually pretty solid for Pierce. We can get this to, we have Pierce ammo powder on it already. So 6 capacity, comes with tetrad shot built in. It's decent. In general, honestly, Artian weapons are going to clear with heavy bowguns. Spread isn't really a thing anymore. I even made this, which is more of a meme gun. But Artian pretty much sweeps the heavy bowgun category because heavy bowguns are very good in elemental and normal. At least that's what was told to me by the people that are the, like, big name gun, or the big name heavy bowgun people in the game, people like Altair and Fem. So I would suggest sticking primarily to Artian, but there are a couple of standouts here. Mainly, you know, Gravios is okay. If you wanted to go for, you know, getting into your stuff like your Arcfeld. Because the big thing is spread ammo is cheeks now. Spread ammo is just, the recoil on it is just complete ass, so you're never going to work with it. But like, for example, I have a normal heavy bowgun, and this is going to be 240 -10 with only 2 points of tetrad shot at 331. The heavy bowgun Artian I have completely decimates that. As for bow, there is a couple bow standouts. If you want to go the raw route, Griefbringer Urstocks here at 250 ballistic, special ammo boost -15, 331 is going to be the standard go-to choice. For element, Artian completely queen sweeps the category. Yankuku is decent, but it will get completely outbeat. My Artian just slaps that across the board. And that's going to be a quick breakdown of the weapons. Now, talking about armor, if you're still in low rank, honestly, just make Arcfeld, make Ebony, or make Arkfeld, Ebony, or what's his name? Lightning Dragon. How am I forgetting his name? It's pretty late. Right now. Once we're into high rank, honestly, there are a couple sets that are early that I do think are worth making, which actually I'll just pull that up in a second. But one of the first is going to be Ebony Odegarin. I'd suggest making the full beta set for this and also the Alpha Gloves. The Alpha Gloves are going to come with 2 points of burst as opposed to a 2-1 decoration slot. Burst is going to be one of our best damage skills. Searching up Adrenaline Rush. If you are playing Dual Blades Bow or Longsword or anything where you are playing with like a Beta Window and highly evasive, the Rathalos Beta Chest, the Rathalos Beta Coil, and the Zuwu Beta Helm. All 3 of these pieces will have access to Adrenaline Rush 2. When you couple this with the Talisman, in addition to a level 3 deco, you hit Adrenaline Rush level 5, which is pretty solid, so I'd suggest making all 3 of those just for build flexibility. Then after that, we're mainly going to be focused on late game stuff. Scrolling down the list, Dahad has some stuff for Agitator. Personally, I don't really think Agitator is worth it anymore. Uthduna has a lot of stuff for peak performance if you want to play around that. I'm not a big fan of peak myself, so I haven't. Ray Dow is still solid. Thunderous Roar is a 3.5 minute duration on max might, which is, or not max might, late power, which is pretty cracked. So a couple pieces of Ray Dow if you want to do that set. New Udra in particular, we get Resentment and Counter-Strike. Very good set. The Helm in particular, huge value on this because we can get Counter-Strike and 3 points of Resentment once we hit the decos. The Feet as well. Comes with 1 point of burst, level 3 deco, so this is effectively 2 burst on your legs, so that's huge. But I recommend getting these new Udra pieces. The gloves, not as important. Like I said, we can max out Counter-Strike here. Counter-Strike speed eating 3-1. I mean, there's better deco setups than that. Gormagala. In general, the beta set is going to be better. Make the full beta set. If you are playing IG, I do recommend these 3 pieces from the alpha set because we can get Master Mounter, which means you're going to get like 6 mounts a hunt. Literally, you did 6 mounts on an Arkfeld in 1 hunt playing aerial IG. Pretty fun. But Gore Beta is a fantastic set. Black Eclipse, very useful, especially if we have full antivirus, which we can get easily with the Gore Beta Greaves. Basically, we're going to get Inflicted with Frenzy. When that cures, we get an attack boost and 25% affinity, and we proc things like Coalescence. Very, very strong. Even if you're only doing the 2-piece, you can still do 2-piece antivirus for 25% extra affinity. As for the Arkfeld gear, for the set bonuses, Arkfeld's Hunger, as we continue to deal damage, we're going to eventually get a small heal. It's kind of like a regular potion, not very strong. Guardian Arkfeld with Decimator 2. This, on the other hand, is pretty chunky. Every time we break a wound, we get a heal. Even if you don't do the wound attack, if you just break it hitting it, you're going to get a heal. So this is like our Nirgante set of the game. I would consider it to be the best comfy set. Regardless, I would suggest making full Guardian Arkfeld beta and full Arkfeld beta. Now this set in particular, we have some interesting stuff here. We have Convert Element in addition to Elemental Absorption, and Elemental Absorption will proc anytime you take damage or perfect block or perfect dodge through something. It's going to get you 20, 40, and 60 of an element, so it's very easy to work that into an element set. Convert Element, on the other hand, only works on elemental weapons, but it adds additional dragon damage to your attack, which functions kind of similar to burst, but doing the dragon element. So pretty cool. You can actually reach dragon elemental cap pretty easily with that, with like I think 1 point of coalescence it is. But there's some interesting stuff. But I'd say the biggest thing is going to be Guardian Arkfeld beta, just because Decimator 2 and Flayer is incredibly comfortable, and those would be the main parts that I recommend. This is I currently have 35 builds put together. I'm in the process of making elemental charge blades and IGs, but everything I just covered is covered in one of these builds. So that's why I made the recommendations that I did. Moving on from there, let's talk about investigations, the end game farm, and map cycling, because this is ultimately our end game loop, right? So the way investigations work is we look at the map and we see what we want to hunt. This guy has a wyvern gem, so let's say I want to go after him. I can hit create quest. Be like, yeah, that wyvern gem is what I need. And then I can save it as an investigation. Now, if I was to do that, it'll just save this mission. I can then repeat it 3 times, and then I can also go to begin the field survey, effectively doing the quest a total of 4 times. And this is going to be how we get our good rewards. Now, there's stuff that's way, way better than that. If I pull up the world map, we'll look around. Let's see if there's anything that's crazy. If not, I'll just show you some of my investigations. There we go. There's a tempered Arkfeld with a butt ton of the pieces I need to make 38 weapons. We have a double quest up there with a ton of parts and some guaranteed gems. Got a Gravios with a bunch of decos over there. And this is where we're going to really get our stuff, is just kind of cycling the map. And, you know, you get investigations like this. Shit ton of Artian parts, nice amount of Artian parts, nice amount of rewards. Fuckload of Artian parts, fuckload of Artian parts. I think I have one that's a fuckload of decos. And the double hunts are going to be your big monies. Your double hunts are usually going to be stacked on decos or stacked on Artian parts. Now, how do we get the double hunts? Quite simple. Do everything that's a double hunt in your optional quests. By the time you get all of them done, you'll start having double monster hunts that unlock on the map, and those are going to be your money makers. Additionally, you should do all the side quests anyway, but the one that does Secure Wounded Hollow and then as Gatekeeper, I believe it's those two. Those are going to unlock your armor charm and your power charm, so definitely get those done. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is map cycling. Let's say there is a certain monster you want. That is what the rest function in the tent is for, and this is going to be your best friend, because I can go here, change this to inclemency. I'm in the mood to beat up Raydao. Raydao an Apex. He will always show up during inclemency. So we'll go ahead, we'll swap that, let it load. Come on, game, load faster for me. It's time for me to go to bed. Right, and I'm pulling up our map. Sure enough, there is a Raydao. Now, unfortunately, he isn't tempered, but I could just keep doing this until I have a Raydao that is tempered, if that's what I was looking for. And on top of that, it did cycle every zone. So I can look around, I can see there's now a tempered Wrath and Wrathian quest, a bunch of decos over there, a Frenzied is up, a couple things over there. Wounded Hollow has a Wrath. And so we can do this to cycle the map around and get what we want. If you're just trying to farm those like fatty double quests like the ones I have, this is a good way to do it. You just spend some stuff and you cycle the map, or alternatively, you know, you just go around the map and you hunt until stuff shows up. Now, the very last thing I'd like to talk about before I close out is some stuff related to build crafting. I don't know why I'm going over here to the training area. I can show this anywhere, but there's two important options that I want to call out. The first is this, the third page of game settings, weapon attack power display. Now, if you're wondering why all of my weapons are around 200 in terms of damage, it's because I've turned off the bloat coefficient. And for those unaware, the basic idea is when Monster Hunter started getting more popular, they figured if people saw that dual blades did 200 damage and a greatsword did 200 damage, they go, oh my god, I'm using the dual blades. They hit so much faster. They deal just as much. So they put in a coefficient which bloated the values to make it look like, oh, a dual blade's 200, greatsword 800, big unga bunga, you know, big number, brain happy. But that makes it a lot harder to calculate your true effective raw with the weapon and really calculate how much damage you're actually doing. Selecting display without coefficient is going to give you your true damage, and that makes it way easier to get an accurate representation of how strong a weapon actually is. So I highly suggest you put this on. In addition, if you're doing any build testing, go over here and put on display with decimals. I don't like playing with it on normally, but when I'm build testing, I put this on just so I can get more accurate numbers and I don't have to deal with rounding. And with all that being said, we are finally wrapped up on our high rank guide. So, I feel like I need a drink after all that. That was 33 minutes of just like bah, 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 bah. My throat is parched. Either way, I'm going to close this one on out. I will have breakdowns of each weapon in depth. I have all those weapon guides. Those are going to be coming up probably shortly after this. I think my plan is as soon as I reach high rank on stream, I'm just going to open the floodgates and let out all the stuff, because if I've already covered it myself on stream, I think it's safe for Spoiler City. But either way, thanks for coming on by. Hopefully this helps you get started in high rank. Get out there, enjoy the hunt, and I'll catch you next time. Oh, wait. Oh, almost forgot. How could I almost forget? Talismans. I mean, actually, talismans aren't that important. I don't need to travel, really. But in terms of making talismans, highly suggest getting a Flare Talisman, getting a Wex Talisman, getting a Burst Talisman. Those are your top three. Adrenaline Rush is also very useful. Besides that, you're probably good to go with whatever else you want, but those I would consider the priority. Basically, anything that requires a level 3 decoration, that is where you're going to get the most value out of your talisman. So on that note, we are closing out. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.